Hello, everybody. How are you today? Welcome. I'm glad you're here. I am doing this video sitting down in my chair today. My back's been bothering me and I've just been having some issues, so I wanted to sit down, and that's what I'm doing. I started off my morning kind of rough. I tried to burn my house down. I was boiling eggs and the flame was up too high and caught my pot on fire, and it was just a mess. So it's just been one of those mornings, but that's okay. This is still the day that the Lord has made, and I am going to rejoice and be glad in it. Well, if you are joining one of these videos for the first time, let me tell you what we have going on here. We go through various stories in the Bible for people who don't know what the stories are. Maybe you've heard bits and pieces of the stories, you know what somebody has told you about them, but you don't know them in their entirety. We go through them so you have a chance to know what they say. And then when they come up in conversation, or you hear a sermon or a preacher talking about a part of this, you know what they're talking about, and you can participate in that. We've been going through the story of David, and we've been talking about how his son Absalom sort of took the throne away from him, and now David is on the run. Before I get too far into this, I do want to mention, if you are watching this video on YouTube, please hit the like and subscribe button. We do this video live on Facebook, and then we upload it later to YouTube. So if you want to check out more videos and other teachings that we have on our page, you can go to our Facebook page, simply search for Get Clear Teachings, and you will find us there. In the meantime, let's go ahead and get started. So, we've been talking about David. Absalom, his son, has wrestled the throne away from him. David is on the run from his own son. And in the last chapter, Absalom decided to sleep with all of David's concubines on the rooftop of the palace in front of everybody, just to prove that he was in charge and to make himself repulsive to David so that the people would cheer him on. And now Absalom is wondering what they should do next, and he has this advisor named Ahithophel. And we are going to pick up from there and begin reading. We're in 2 Samuel chapter 17 if you want to follow along. Ahithophel said to Absalom, "Let me choose 12,000 men, and I will set out in pursuit of David tonight. I will attack him while he is weary and discouraged, throw him into a panic, and all the people with him will scatter. I will strike down only the king and bring all the people back to you. When everyone returns except the man you're looking for, all the people will be at peace." This proposal seemed right to Absalom and all the elders of Israel. Then Absalom said, "Summon Hushai the Archite. Let's hear what he has to say on the matter as well." So Hushai came to Absalom, and Absalom said to him, "Ahithophel offered this proposal. Should we carry out this proposal? If not, what do you say?" Hushai replied to Absalom, "The advice Ahithophel has given this time is not good." Hushai continued, "You know your father and his men. They are warriors and are desperate like a wild bear robbed of her cubs. Your father is an exceptional soldier who won't spend the night with the people. He's probably already hiding in one of the caves or some other place. If some of our troops fall, first, someone is sure to hear and say, 'There's been a slaughter among the people who follow Absalom.' Then even a brave man with the heart of a lion will lose heart, because all Israel knows that your father and the valiant men with him are warriors. Instead, I advise that all of Israel from Dan to Beersheba, as numerous as the sands by the sea, be gathered to you, and that you personally go into battle. Then we will attack David wherever we find him, and we will descend on him like dew on the ground. Not even one will be left, neither he nor any of the men with him. If he retreats to some city, all of Israel will bring ropes to that city, and we will drag its stones into the valley until not even a pebble can be found there. Since the Lord had decreed that Ahithophel's good advice be undermined in order to bring about Absalom's ruin, Absalom and all the men of Israel said, "The advice of Hushai the Archite is better than Ahithophel's advice." Hushai then told the priests Zadok and Abiathar, "This is what Ahithophel advised Absalom and the elders of Israel, and this is what I advise. Now, send someone quickly and tell David, don't spend the night in the wilderness ford, but be sure to cross over the Jordan, or the king and all the people with him will be devoured." Jonathan and Ahimaaz were staying at Enrogel, where a servant girl would come and pass along informing them. They in turn would go and inform King David because they dared not be seen entering the city. However, a young man did see them and informed Absalom. So the two left quickly and came to the house of a man in Bahurim. He had a well in his courtyard, and they climbed down into it. Then his wife took the cover, placed it over the mouth of the well, and scattered grain on it so nobody would know anything. Absalom's servants came to the woman at the house and asked, "Where are Ahimaaz and Jonathan?" "They passed by towards the water," the woman replied to them. "The men searched but did not find them, so they returned to Jerusalem." After they had gone, Ahimaaz and Jonathan climbed out of the well and went and informed King David. They told him, "Get up and immediately ford the river, for Ahithophel has given this advice against you." So David and all the people with him got up and crossed the Jordan. By daybreak, there was no one who had not crossed the Jordan. When Ahithophel realized that his advice had not been followed, he saddled his donkey and set out for his house in his hometown. He set his house in order and hanged himself. So he died and was buried in his father's tomb. David had arrived at Mahanaim by the time Absalom crossed the Jordan with all the men of Israel. Now Absalom had appointed Amasa over the army in Joab's place. Amasa was the son of a man named Ithra, the Israelite. Ithra had married Abigail, daughter of Nahash. Abigail was a sister to Zeruiah, Joab's mother, and Israel and Absalom camped in the land of Gilead. When David came to Mahanaim, Shobai, son of Nahash from Rabbah of the Ammonites, Mishar, son of Amiel from Lo-debar, and Barzillai, the Gileadite from Rogelem, brought beds, basins, and pottery items. They also brought wheat, barley, flour, roasted grain, beans, lentils, honey, curd, sheep, goats, and cheese from the herd of David and the people with him to eat. They had reasoned, the people must be hungry and thirsty in the wilderness. Whew. That's quite a bit that we just read. That was chapter 17 out of 2 Samuel. There are three ways that we look at these scriptures when we read them. What does it say? We have to have reading comprehension. If we don't read the words on the page, we never know what it says, right? Next, we have to take everything into context. What was it saying to the people of the time? We have to understand what was going on in the full surrounding of things in the history and culture of the times. And last, what, if anything, is this saying to us today? So what did we just read? Well, if you remember, David's friend, Hushai, wanted to go with David, and David said, "No, go back and hang out with Absalom. Maybe you can send reports to me of what's really going on." So Absalom has gotten some advice from Ahithophel. Ahithophel says, "Let's just get all of our armies together and go after David and just, slaughter them." And Absalom thinks, well, let me get Hushai's advice on this too. Now, Absalom doesn't realize that Hushai is actually a spy. And Hushai says, "Oh, that's terrible advice. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Because, your father is a really great warrior. And if we go after him, he's going to kill some of our men first. And if our men die first, the people are going to lose heart and they're going to be afraid and they're not going to want to follow you. So my advice to you would be just take a few men, go yourself, and we're only going to go kill David and bring the rest of them back with us." So Absalom decides, I think taking the advice of Hushai is probably the better thing to do. I wouldn't want the people to not follow me and be discouraged. So he's going to go ahead and take Hushai's advice. Well, in the meantime, Hushai goes and he tells the priest's sons, hey, let David know, get this message to David. So they pass this message on. There was a girl who would stand out and she'd pass information. She was sort of like, they didn't have telephones then, but do you remember playing that old game of telephone when you were a kid where you whisper in somebody's ear and then they whisper in the next person's ear? Well, this is what they were doing. They were passing the information along until it would get to David. But somebody saw them telling this girl this information, these two guys, and they went and told Absalom. So Absalom sent some men after these two guys, and a woman hid them. They went to this man's house, and his wife hid them in a well, and she put the cover over the well and scattered grain around like the well had not been disturbed. And when they came looking for him, she said, I don't know, they went over towards the water somewhere, and so they went off, but they never found him. Then Ahithophel realizes that, Absalom has not taken my advice. He's decided to take the advice of Hushai. And now what's going to happen is he's going to lose. And when David finds out that I tried to have him destroyed and his army destroyed, I'm a goner. I'm a dead man. And if this doesn't work out for Absalom, Absalom's going to be mad at me anyway, and I'm a dead man. So he takes off, he goes to his hometown, and in a poetic gesture, he hangs himself. Because he knew one way or another, things were not going to go well for him. He was going to be disgraced. So he goes and he hangs himself. Meanwhile, there are some people that have been gathered together with Absalom, and they are on the move, they're on the hunt, they're going after David. And there are a few people who have brought some food and grain and honey and whatnot to David and his men, because they're thinking to themselves, surely they're tired out there in the field and in the battle. So that's where we're leaving off. I'm curious, what do you get out of this? What did you learn from this story today? Are you beginning to see that those who plot against people of God have things that don't work out well for them? Are you beginning to see that? Are you beginning to understand that because David continuously turned to God for advice and he took godly advice, then God protects him? That doesn't mean David's life is peachy. It doesn't mean that everything works out perfectly. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have trouble. I mean, the man's on the run. His own son is trying to kill him. But God has his hand in all of this, and he has not forsaken David. God's hand is still with David. But I'm curious as to what you've gotten out of this. One thing that I believe strongly is that the Word of God can stand alone, that it does not need editorialized. Sometimes it doesn't even need explained. Sometimes it does. But mostly, we can read this and understand and begin to see the character of God on our own. The Holy Spirit can speak that to us. So I'm curious as to what you're getting out of this story of David. There's one more thing I'd like to touch on before we close up. I know the words are probably going to be backwards here because my camera is facing the other way. But this is the last book that I wrote. I wrote this one, it's been almost a year now since this came out. It's called I Met Her in the Throne Room. It's got some wonderful stories in there about how I met a woman while I was praying one night, and some other stories in there as well, some inspirational stories. So I'd like for you to go check that book out if you have an opportunity to. And I'll try to leave a link in the description for you so you can go find that. In the meantime, I hope you learned something today. Thank you for bearing with me today, and I look forward to us getting together the next time. We're going to probably go ahead and move on to the next chapter in 2 Samuel, and then we're going to take a break from the story of David. We're going to take a break, and we're going to move on to a couple of other things for a while. But I hope you learned something. I'm glad you were here. Can't wait for us to be together again. Have a great day. God bless you.